We want a strong military. How good is our military, right? Now, we're doing very well, by the way. Well, first of all, Venezuela was unbelievable, right? Now, Iran, their Navy's gone, their Air Force is gone, everything's gone, their leaders are gone. And if you read the fake news, you'd think they're doing just fine. They're not doing just fine. They want to settle so badly. We have the greatest military.
Pentagon leaks are now reportedly shifting political pressure toward Israel, raising questions over whether Washington is subtly signaling concerns about the risks of any renewed Iran conflict escalating beyond control. Fresh reporting from inside U.S. defense circles suggests that Washington is increasingly warning that another large-scale war with Iran could significantly drain American military capacity and strain long-term strategic readiness. According to analysts, recent signals emerging from leaked assessments appear to underline a growing concern in Washington that it may not be able to sustain the operational and financial burden of supporting another prolonged Iran conflict alongside global commitments. Some observers argue that the tone of these leaks reflects a quiet shift in narrative, where pressure and accountability are being redirected outward, including toward key allies such as Israel, as the cost of escalation becomes more apparent. There are now rising questions in policy circles about whether the United States is indirectly acknowledging limits in its ability to sustain simultaneous high-intensity conflicts, especially in the Middle East and the Indo-Pacific. Some critics go further, suggesting that prolonged military entanglements could ultimately weaken U.S. strategic positioning globally, raising concerns that resources consumed in one theater may impact readiness in a potential future confrontation with China. Pentagon leaks are now being interpreted as signaling a growing shift in Washington's narrative, with some reports suggesting an increasing tendency to highlight Israel's role in raising the risks of a renewed and potentially wider Iran conflict. Leaked assessments appear to emphasize the heavy operational, financial, and strategic costs that the United States could face in any future armed confrontation with Iran, particularly if it escalates into a prolonged regional war. According to these leaked reports, there are internal concerns within U.S. defense circles that Washington may struggle to sustain another large-scale military engagement in the Middle East without significantly stretching its already pressured resources. The same reports have been circulated through media outlets that are widely described as being closely aligned with Trump-linked political and information networks, adding another layer of political sensitivity to the disclosures. According to the Washington Post, the United States reportedly used nearly half of its THAAD missile defense interceptor stockpile during the conflict, highlighting the scale of its direct military involvement in the engagement. Separate reports also indicate that the U.S. Navy fired more than 100 SM-3 and SM-6 interceptors during the same period, reflecting sustained naval participation in high-intensity missile defense operations. In contrast, Israeli forces are reported to have used fewer than 100 Arrow interceptors throughout the conflict, suggesting a comparatively lower depletion of its own missile defense inventory. A U.S. official speaking to the Washington Post claimed that American forces engaged roughly twice as many Iranian missiles as Israel did, underscoring the heavier burden carried by U.S. defense systems. The report further suggests that Israel was able to conserve a significant portion of its missile stockpiles during the fighting, while U.S. resources were comparatively more rapidly consumed in active interception operations. According to the Washington Post, the Pentagon is also reportedly facing growing shortages of ATACMS short-range ballistic missiles, raising concerns over the availability of key precision strike weapons in a potential future high-intensity conflict. Separate assessments suggest that the American defense industry is currently experiencing significant delays in replenishing critical munition stockpiles, creating additional pressure on supply chains already strained by recent operational demands. The U.S. may need years to rebuild some of the advanced weapon stockpiles consumed during the Iran war. A new analysis warns that this depletion could undermine U.S. readiness for any future conflict with China. Precision-guided munitions and air defense interceptors were used at a pace that outstripped replacement rates. That has raised fresh doubts about whether the U.S. can sustain major wars across multiple theaters at once. A prolonged replenishment timeline could weaken American deterrence in the Indo-Pacific. The Iran war also exposed concerns that the U.S. defense industrial base cannot keep up with the demands of modern conflict. Analysts have long warned that any war over Taiwan would require very large volumes of advanced weaponry. Critics argue the costly Iran war failed to produce a decisive outcome while also draining U.S. firepower. The resulting strain on stockpiles may now leave Washington facing greater risks in a future Asia-Pacific crisis. US defense contractors may need at least 3 years to rebuild key weapon stockpiles after the Iran war. A new CSIS analysis warned that depleted inventories could leave the United States more vulnerable. Tomahawk missiles, Patriot interceptors, and THAAD interceptors were identified as 3 of the key systems under strain. The think tank said the main challenge is not funding, but the time required to expand production. That means the window of vulnerability could last for several years until stockpiles are restored. China has notably set a goal of being able to take Taiwan by force, if necessary, by 2027. CSIS said it could take until late 2030 to fully rebuild Tomahawk inventories to their pre-war level. Fewer than 200 Tomahawks are currently produced each year, though Raytheon is aiming to raise capacity above 1,000. The report also said it could take until the end of 2029 to replace as many as 290 THAAD interceptors. Replenishing more than 1,000 Patriot interceptors is expected to be completed around mid-2029. Despite the shortages, the Pentagon has insisted it still has enough in its arsenal to carry out the president's orders.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that look, you will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the U.S. will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry ghats.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HT videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.